Hello and good day to my fellow readers here. You can call me Isabel, mid-20s, currently living in Manila. This story I'm about to share was my personal experience with Tikbalang. I haven't really told anyone about this, except maybe one friend, and even she looked at me like I was crazy. But maybe if I share it now, maybe someone out there will understand. So, this all started when I went back to my hometown in Batangas. I live in Manila now, right? So, coming back home always felt like a break, you know? Fresh air, old neighbors, quiet nights. But that trip? It wasn't like that. My Lola had just passed, and I was supposed to help fix up her house. She lived kind of far from the main town, up in the hills, near the edge of the forest. Beautiful place, but always quiet. Too quiet. So, the first few nights were normal. Nothing weird. I cleaned out the house, threw away old newspapers, stuff like that. But every night, right around 2 a.m., I'd wake up to this tapping sound on the window. At first, I thought, maybe it's just a branch, right? Wind blowing, but when I looked outside, there was no tree close enough to make that sound. Then, on the third night, I woke up not just to tapping. There was breathing. Heavy, slow breathing, like something big was outside my window. I didn't dare look at first. I just laid there, frozen. But curiosity got the better of me. So I pulled back the curtain, and there was nothing. Just the darkness of the forest beyond. Still, I couldn't shake this feeling, like something was watching me. The next day, I asked the neighbor, Mangisco. He's like 80 but still sharp. I asked if there were any weird animals around, you know, hoping he'd say a wild boar or something normal. But he just looked at me, dead serious, and said, "Oh dear. Don't wander around in the afternoon. The Tikbalang roams there." Tikbalang. I laughed it off. I mean, come on. A half-horse, half-human creature? That's for kids, right? But that night, I was out late, fixing some stuff inside. I lost track of time. When I finally stepped outside to lock the door, I realized it was already dark. Like, real dark. The kind where even the moon seems to hide. And then I heard it. Hoofsteps. Not a car, not footsteps. Hoofsteps. But slow, heavy, like whatever was walking wasn't in a hurry. I stood there, holding my breath, and suddenly, the air changed. It felt thick, like I was underwater, and I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. And that's when I saw it. At first, just a shape between the trees. Tall, way too tall, with legs like a horse, but standing upright. I told myself, it's just a man on stilts or something. A prank, maybe. But then it stepped forward, and I saw the head, long like a horse, but the eyes were human, glowing faintly red, like coals that refused to die out. I wanted to run, but my body wouldn't move. Instead, I watched as it reached up, this long, bony arm, and grabbed the branch above it, and then it grinned. I don't know how long I stood there, just watching, but when I blinked, it was gone. I ran inside, slammed the door, and locked it. I told myself, tomorrow, I'm leaving. I don't care about fixing the house. But the next day, I woke up to footprints outside the window. Not human footprints, hoof prints. Big, deep, like something heavy had been standing there all night. I called my mom. I told her I wanted to leave early, and she was like, "But you said you'd stay a week." I made some excuse. Headache, feeling sick, anything to get away. But of course, there was no bus until the day after. So I was stuck. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up with all the lights on, sitting in the middle of the living room, clutching a rosary, and I kept hearing it, circling the house. Slow, deliberate, and then it knocked. Not on the door, but on the wall, like it wanted me to know it could come in any time. "Good evening." The voice was deep, almost a growl, but mocking, like it knew I was afraid. I didn't answer. I didn't even breathe. But then it laughed. Not like a person, more like a distorted sound, like a horse trying to imitate human laughter. "Why are you afraid? Do you want to trade places?" I remember that part so clearly. Do you want to trade places? Trade places with what? I don't know how long it stayed out there. Maybe hours. I must have fallen asleep out of exhaustion, because when I woke up, the sun was rising, and there were more hoof prints circling the house. When I left that day, I didn't even look back. But here's the thing. When I got back to Manila, I thought that was it. But a week later, I was walking home from work, and as I turned onto my street, I swear, I heard it. Far away, but coming closer. I don't know if it followed me or if I brought something back with me. But sometimes, even now, late at night, I'll hear tapping on the window. And every time I look, there's nothing there. But I feel it. Watching. Waiting. So, if you're ever out in the province, near the woods, and you hear hoofsteps when no horses should be there, don't look. Don't speak. And for God's sake, never agree to make a deal, because you don't know what you're dealing with. And neither did I. So, like I said, after that first encounter, I thought maybe I was just overtired. Maybe my brain made it all up. Stress from my Lola's death, the isolation, all that. I mean, that had to be it, right? But then, about a month later, I started having these dreams. Not normal dreams. They felt wrong. Too real. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart racing like I'd been running, and always the same dream. I'm standing in my Lola's yard. It's dark, so dark, and in front of me is the Tikbalang, staring, unmoving, just watching me. But the worst part? It talks to me in those dreams. It keeps asking me the same thing. Are you ready to trade places now? Trade places. I don't know what it means, but I can feel what it means, you know? Like, if I say yes, I won't be myself anymore. Maybe I won't even be human. A few weeks after those dreams started, weird things began happening here, in Manila. I live in a small condo, pretty high up. There's no way anyone could be outside my window. But at night, the tapping started again, and the breathing. Sometimes I hear hoofsteps in the hallway, and when I check, there's nothing. One night, I even called security, thinking maybe some creep had gotten into the building. They checked everything. Nothing. But as soon as I got back inside and locked my door, right behind me, I spun around so fast I nearly fell over, but there was nothing there. Just cold air. And then things got worse. I started seeing it. Not fully, but reflections. In mirrors, in windows. I'd be brushing my teeth, glance up, and in the mirror behind me, for just a split second I'd see the shape. Those long, twisted legs, the horse-like head, like it was crouched down, grinning. But when I turned, gone. I started getting paranoid. I wouldn't go out at night. I'd avoid mirrors. Hell, I covered them all with blankets. And my friends, they noticed. "Girl, you look terrible," one of them said. "Have you been sleeping at all?" I wanted to tell her. God, I wanted to tell her everything. But how do you even start? "Oh, hey, by the way, I think a Tikbalang is haunting me, and it might want to take my soul or something. Yeah, no. So I just said I wasn't feeling well. But one night, I got home late from work, like almost midnight. The elevator was out, so I had to take the stairs, and as I climbed, behind me, at first I thought, someone else must be here, right? Late night neighbor. But when I stopped, it stopped. When I started again, it followed. I didn't even look back. I ran the last 2 flights up to my door, fumbling with my keys, shaking so bad I could barely get the door open. And just as I slammed the door shut behind me, I heard it, right on the other side. Are you tired now, dear? I don't know how long I sat against the door, just crying. That's when I knew. This wasn't something I could ignore. Desperate, I went to visit an old woman my mom knew, Aling Rosa. People said she was a highlot, but also, one of those people who knows about the old ways. When I told her what happened, finally said the word Tikbalang, her face went pale. She said something I'll never forget. My child, you have an agreement now. You can't just escape anymore. But I never agreed to anything. She just shook her head. Sometimes it only takes looking them in the eye, acknowledging them. That's enough for them to mark you. I asked her what I could do. She gave me a bundle, herbs, anting, and some weird woven thing that looked like a horse's mane tied in a knot. She told me to hang it on my door, burn the herbs, and if the Tikbalang came again, never look at it directly. Never answer its questions. So that's what I did. I felt like an idiot, honestly, sitting there burning leaves like some old village woman. But I was desperate, and for a while, things got quiet. No tapping, no hoofsteps. I thought maybe, finally, it was over. Until a week later, I was sleeping, finally sleeping, when I felt something cold brush my cheek. I opened my eyes, and it was in the room, standing over me. But this time, it didn't look like a horse. It looked like a man, but wrong. Too tall, too thin, with long limbs that seemed to stretch unnaturally. But the eyes, those glowing red eyes, were the same. It leaned close and whispered, "Last chance. Say yes, and it will all stop." I couldn't move. I couldn't speak, but I remembered what Aling Rosa said. So I shut my eyes tight and didn't answer. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, it was gone. Since then, it's been quiet. But sometimes, when I'm walking home or alone at night, I feel it, watching, waiting. And sometimes, in the dark, I still hear clip, clop, clip, clop. So if you think Tikbalang are just stories to scare kids, think again. Because if you ever see one, and if it ever offers you a deal, don't answer, don't look, and pray to God that it doesn't choose you. I used to think once the haunting stops, that would be it. Life would go back to normal, like flipping off a switch. But that's not how these things work. The truth is, it never really leaves you. Even now, months later, I've tried to pick up my life again. I go to work, I see friends, I laugh at jokes, but always, somewhere in the back of my mind, there's this voice. Last chance. Sometimes when I pass a dark alley or an empty stairwell, I swear I hear hoofsteps echoing behind me, and at night, I don't open my curtains anymore. Ever. Because I know if I do, if I even glance outside, I might see those red eyes watching from the shadows. There was one night, just recently, when I broke down. I was sitting here in this very room, trying to convince myself it was all in my head. And then my phone buzzed. Random number, no caller ID. I almost didn't pick up. But curiosity, you know? When I answered, there was nothing at first, just static, and then very faint, like it was whispering through the wires. Are you ready now? I threw my phone across the room. Haven't used it since. So now I'm just waiting, I guess. Waiting to see if it comes back. Or if maybe it's waiting for me to give in. Because that's the thing that keeps me up at night. What if it never wanted to take me by force? What if it's just waiting for me to say yes? To give up, to trade places. And some nights, when I'm too tired to fight, too tired to be afraid, I catch myself wondering, what would happen if I said yes? What would it feel like to be free from all this fear, if only for a moment? But then, I remember Shelling Rose's words. Once you agree, you're his. Forever. So, if you've stayed to listen this long, maybe now you believe me. Or maybe you think I'm crazy. Just remember this. Stories can be stories. But don't forget to take it as a reminder and never hesitate to ask for help when you know you need it. Here's our second story of true Tikbalang encounter. Hello and good day. My name is Sarah from Panay Island, and what I'm about to tell you might bring you chills. I have been reading a lot of stories in this group and thought it's time to share mine. Not really mine, but my sister's. Have you heard about Tikbalang? It's one of those stories that people would laugh at, right? Say it's just a provincial myth, some stupid ghost story to keep kids from wandering into the forest. But I know what I saw, and I know what happened to my sister. Her name was Bee, 2 years older than me, always braver than me. She was the one who used to protect me when we were kids. Whenever I had nightmares, she'd sneak into my room, curl up next to me and whisper, "Don't worry. If anything comes for you, they'll have to go through me first." Funny, huh? I used to believe that. But now I wonder who protected her. It all started when Lola died. Our mom didn't want to deal with the house, so Bee volunteered to stay there and fix it up. I was supposed to help, but I was busy with school, and I didn't want to go back there, honestly. Too many memories, so I let her go alone. She called me a lot in the first few days. At first, it was normal stuff, complaining about the dust, how the roof leaked, how the forest had grown closer to the house since we were kids. But then the calls got strange. One night she called and her voice was shaking. "You ever feel like something's out there, watching you?" I laughed. "It's just the forest, Bee. You know how it gets at night." She was quiet for a long time, and then she whispered, "It's not just trees. It has legs, hooves, and it follows me." I felt a chill, but I told her to stop scaring herself. Next time she called, she sounded worse. She said it wasn't just outside anymore. She said she woke up to find muddy hoof prints on the floor, inside the house, leading to her bedroom door. She said she heard it breathing right outside her window at night. Sometimes it would scratch the glass. Sometimes it would whisper her name. I begged her to come home, but she said she couldn't. One night, she called me at 3 a.m., crying. It asked me to go with it. It said I don't belong here. I said, "Beh, it's just a dream. You need to sleep, please." But she said she was afraid to sleep, because when she dreamed, she was already following it. She said she dreamed of walking into the woods, deeper and deeper, and every time it was there, waiting, tall, with that horrible horse's face and those red eyes, and every night It would get closer. The last time she called me, she wasn't crying anymore. Her voice was calm, too calm. She said, "I think I'm going to say yes." I panicked. I shouted at her, "What do you mean?" "B, no! You don't have to do anything. Just get out of there. I'll come pick you up." She just sighed and said, "Maybe if I say yes, it'll stop. Maybe it'll leave you alone." I told her I was coming right away, but before I could say anything else, she hung up. I drove all night, got there at dawn. The house was quiet, too quiet. Her bag was packed by the door, like she'd been ready to leave, but she was gone. I searched the whole house, called her name until my throat was raw. Nothing. But in the yard, I found hoof prints, deep, fresh, circling the house, and leading into the woods. We never found her. No trace. Some people said she ran away. Some said she probably got lost in the forest. But I know what happened, because a week later, she came back. Or something came back. I was asleep in my apartment, and I woke up to the sound of tapping on my window. I live on the 4th floor. No way anyone could be outside. But when I looked, there she was, B, standing there, smiling, but wrong. Her skin was pale, like paper, eyes darker, empty. She waved at me, and then, in a voice that sounded almost like hers, but distant, hollow, she said, "It's better now. You should come too." I blinked, and she was gone. Sometimes, I still see her. In reflections, in dreams, always smiling, always saying the same thing. "You should come too." I keep thinking back to what she said on the phone, that maybe if she said yes, it would leave me alone. But I don't think it ever planned to leave. I think now that it has her, it wants more. So if you ever hear hoofsteps at night, or tapping on your window, if you see someone you love, standing there, smiling, inviting you to follow them, don't, because it's not them. Not anymore. Here's the 3rd true story of Tikbalang encounter. Hello and good day to everyone. This story I'm about to tell you is about my sister and what happened to her. Or I should say, how Tikbalang changed her life. I guess if I don't, nobody will know what really happened to my sister. Her name was Isabel, my little sister. She was only 22. People say she took her own life, but that's not the truth. Not all of it. I know. She chose to die because the thing that was after her wouldn't stop. Because she knew if she didn't, it would take her alive. It started when she moved into our Lola's house in the province, way up in the hills. You know the kind. Old, creaky, surrounded by trees that never stop moving, even when there's no wind. She was supposed to stay there just for a while. Fix up the house, maybe sell it. First few weeks, everything was fine. She sent me photos of the yard, joked about how she was turning into a provinciana. But then, her messages got weird. She texted me late one night. Just 4 words. "It's outside my window." I called her right away, but she didn't answer. Next morning, she texted again. "I think it's following me." I asked her what it was. She wouldn't say. A few days later, she finally called. Her voice was shaky. I could hear her crying. She said, "Kuya, I think it's a Tikbalang." At first, I didn't know what to say. A Tikbalang? One of those old stories our Lola used to scare us with? But she was serious. Dead serious. She told me she first saw it from her window. Tall. Too tall. Horse's head. Long legs that bent the wrong way. just standing there, watching her. And then it started coming closer. Every night, it would stand right at her window, sometimes tapping on the glass with those long fingers, sometimes just watching. She said it spoke to her, whispering things. "You're mine. Come with me. You don't belong here." She stopped sleeping, stopped eating. I told her I was coming to get her, but she said, "I can't leave." He said, "If I try to leave, he'll take you instead." That's when I knew. This wasn't just in her head, because that thing had threatened me. Through her. I begged her to hold on, promised her I'd figure something out, but 2 days later she was gone. They found her in the yard, hanging from the tree by the forest's edge. The same tree she always told me it was standing under, eyes open, looking straight into the woods, like she was still afraid, even in death. The police called it suicide, but I know it wasn't, because of what she left behind. When I went to clear out her things, I found her notebook. Page after page, drawings of a tall figure with a horse's head, long, sharp teeth, eyes that glowed red in the dark, and in shaky handwriting, "I'd rather die than go with him. If I go, he'll take Kuya too. This is the only way to stop him." But she was wrong, because now, I think it's following me. The first night I stayed at her house, I heard hoofsteps outside. Slow, deliberate. Clip, clop, clip, clop. I didn't sleep, just sat there in the dark, listening. When I went back to the city, I thought I left it behind. But then, the tapping started, on my apartment window. I live on the 5th floor, but still, every night, tap, tap, tap. And sometimes, when I'm half asleep, I hear it whisper, "Your turn." I'm starting to see things now, in mirrors, reflections on glass, a figure, tall, too tall to be human, with long, twisted limbs, watching, waiting. I think Isabel knew what was coming. I think she knew he wouldn't stop until he had her, so she took the only way out she had left. But now, it's my turn. You know what the worst part is? Sometimes, I think I hear Isabel, calling from the woods, crying, begging me not to come. But other times, she sounds different, and she says, "It's not so bad, Kuya. Just say yes." You know, I keep thinking back to what Isabel said. "If I try to leave, he'll take you instead." At first, I thought she was just scared, paranoid. But now I think she was right. After her funeral, I stayed in that house for a few nights, maybe to feel closer to her, maybe to convince myself it wasn't real. But every night, it got worse. The first night, I woke up to hoofsteps, not loud, not stomping, just there, moving slow around the house, like it was looking for a way in. I told myself, it's just my head. Grief can mess you up, right? But then I found them, the hoof prints, in the dirt outside the window. Deep, fresh. Second night, I didn't sleep. I sat on Isabel's bed, her scent still in the pillows, and at around 3 a.m., I heard her voice, crying, from the woods. "Kuya, help me, please." I jumped up, ran to the window, but I couldn't see her. Only the trees, and behind them, I swear, 2 glowing red eyes staring back. The next morning, I packed my bags, ready to leave that cursed place behind. But as I was closing the door, I heard something, right behind me. In that same low, croaking voice Isabel had described. She said no. "Will you say yes?" I slammed the door and left. I didn't even look back. But it didn't stop. Back in Manila, I thought I was safe. But the tapping started again. First on my window, and then inside the apartment. At night, I wake up to see shadows moving across my walls. Long, thin shapes, with legs too bent to be human. Sometimes I hear breathing, right next to me. You know what's worst? Sometimes I see Isabel, in mirrors, in the corner of my eye. She doesn't cry anymore. She smiles. And when I close my eyes, I hear her whisper, "It's not so bad, Kuya. You should say yes, too." I tried burning sage, praying, leaving food offerings under the tree where they found her. Nothing works, because I think it's too late for me. You know, Isabel left behind a letter they never showed anyone. I only found it when I went through her journals again last week, hidden in the back cover. It said, "Kuya, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I tried to fight him. I really did. But he won't stop. He wants both of us. He said if I won't go, he'll wait for you. Please, whatever happens, don't stay here too long. Don't listen when I call you. It won't be me." When I read that, I just sat there, shaking, because I realized she died thinking she could protect me. But she couldn't, because now, every night, I hear the same voice. She said no. You will say yes. And every night, I sit here, alone, waiting, wondering how long before I break too. Some nights, I think about saying yes, just to make it stop. But then I remember what Isabel wrote. So I fight it, for now. But if you're hearing this, if I'm gone by the time you hear this, if you ever find my phone, my laptop, these recordings, please know this. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't suicide. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay aware, and if you hear hoofsteps in the dark, don't say yes. Thank you, and if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more Philippines creepypasta stories.